Once you complete your initial test of your hypothesis, you will want to add in a control variable. To do this, we'll go back to where we came from, our crosstab dialog box. In this example, I want to control for race. So I'm going to take the variable of race and I'm going to put it into the layer. Now, I highly recommend that your control variable be a dichotomous nominal variable. That way you're only taking a look at two categories of people. Any more categories makes analysis very, very complicated. But as you can see here, the people in our sample who are not white are coded 1, and the people in our sample who are white are coded 0. And this makes race a dichotomous nominal variable in this data set and therefore appropriate for use as a control variable in the layer. So our statistics, our chi-square button is already checked. Our row, column, and total percentages have already been checked from our previous analysis. I've added the control variable into the layer of the crosstab. I'm going to hit OK. Now this table is much bigger than the one we saw before because here we have a crosstab for the white people in our sample and the not white people in our sample. We also have a total crosstab that's offered by SPSS, but this is the exact same crosstab we saw previously. No need to re-include it into your paper. However, you will want to put the results for white persons and minority persons. Now our job is to interpret these two different crosstabs and to figure out whether the relationship between education and rearrest differs across the races. So to do this, we're going to use our column percentages. Again, this is how you interpret your column percentages. You work through your 100%. So out of everyone with no high school diploma, 73% were not rearrested and 26% were. But out of everyone with a high school diploma, 85% were not rearrested and 15% were. The differences here and the differences here are important. It appears that the more education you have, the less likely you are to be rearrested. At least that's the case for our the white people in the sample. Now for the minority people in this sample, let's take a look. Out of everyone who does not have a high school diploma, 1, 2, 3, 57% were not rearrested and 42% were. Out of everyone with a high school diploma, 69% were not rearrested and 30% were. Again, the difference between these two numbers is what's important. It appears that the more education you have, the less likely you are to be rearrested for the minority people in our sample. So whether you are white or whether you are not white, it looks like the relationship between education and rearrest holds. The question becomes, is it statistically significant across races? To find out, we come down to our chi-square test table. For the white people in our sample, the Pearson chi-square value is 3.027. But the p-value does not meet our threshold of 0.05 or lower. The p equals 0.082. For minority people in the sample, the chi-square is 8.716. The associated p-value is less than 0.01. So this makes for an interesting discussion. What we find here is that our hypothesis is supported for the minority people in our sample, but not for the white people in our sample. That means that having a high school education or higher might be more important for minorities than it is for whites in terms of rearrest. Again, this will make for an interesting discussion in your paper, and you'll need all of these numbers reported out in your paper and interpreted correctly. But before we're finished with our output, we're also going to want to include some basic descriptive statistics. To do that, you'll go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, Descriptives. You'll take every variable you used in your analysis and put it into the dialog box and click OK. Here we have a descriptive statistics table. Again, this should be in your final paper, and you should interpret this. All of my variables are dummy variables. What this means is that 81% marked 1. So 81% of my sample are not white, 24% of my sample are employed, and 34% of my sample were rearrested for a new offense. This is something I would describe to the reader. Another way to get descriptive statistics is to use the frequencies button. Again, I will put all the variables I used in my analyses into the dialog box and hit OK, and I'll get some more detailed data. These are percentages that I might like to report out to the reader. Now I have all the data I need for my final paper, but I need to save that output. Remember, the output file and your data file are two different files. So if you save your data, that's great, but you're not going to save this. And I know you really want this. So we'll go to File, we'll go to Save As, Demo Dataset Output for CJ Interns. You can see the extension is SPV. That's different than the dataset extension, which is SAV. I'm going to hit yes. I want to save it. And now I'm ready to write up.